All right, so time to start recording this.
Okay, so welcome to CIS 1051. Hopefully this is 1051. Otherwise, I'm in the wrong place, right? Everybody's here for programming? Yes, great, awesome. So, I'm sure you have those nightmares of oh gosh, I forgot to go to a class all semester, and now I've got the final exam. That kind of nightmare. I kind of have the reverse nightmare where I was supposed to be teaching a class all semester, and now I have to make up a final for a class I haven't been teaching all semester. It's the reverse. Not nearly as stressful, I think, but it's funny every time I wake up from that and realize what just happened. All right, so this is the Intro to Programming course in Python. I'll go over the syllabus shortly, and that's today what I plan on doing is going over the syllabus plus going over computer science history. On Thursday, we are going to focus on starting to kind of familiarize ourselves with Python, not necessarily learn it. Your lab is going to be dedicated for that first kind of bit of learning of Python, making sure it gets set up on your computer or whatever device you have with you. I'll be talking now about that in general. But if you have not programmed before, this class is for you. If you have programmed a little bit before, this class is for you. If you if you taught quite a bit of yourself, to yourself, but haven't done Python before, definitely for you. This class, if you're not a computer science major, it's for you. I cater to a lot of people, both computer science and not computer science, or data science or IST. Basically, if you're not a CIS major, that you make up a large proportion of my class, to be honest. So we have a number of students here who are trying to go and get a minor, trying to get a certificate, trying to just get a little bit of programming, deciding to try it out as part of their last couple semesters at Temple. So it is a very, very diverse population of students and academic levels that we have in this class. So that being said, please do not compare your progress in the class or your performance in the class necessarily to other people, because that's a great way to get depressed really quickly, because there's people here who are taking this even though they probably do not need to take it at all. Just because they taught themselves a whole lot. It is one of those things where you can learn a whole lot on your own and also miss a lot as you're doing so. And then there's plenty of people who have taught, taken a course that's similar to this, but not necessarily at the college level. So in short, don't necessarily compare your progress to other people. Feel free to ask me questions, or if you're worried about falling behind, let me know. But I try to do a fairly good job of making sure that everybody is where they need to be. All of our contact information is here. This is me, just with less hair. And my contact email is over here, as well as any kind of Zoom meeting that we may need to do, either virtual office hours or whatnot. My office hours are in person, Tuesday, Thursday from 12:30 to 1:30, but I recognize that that some of you might have a class during that time. If you need to meet me at a different time, send me an email. I'm really flexible to meet over Zoom Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or Tuesday and Thursday evenings. Really, really, really flexible. Please do not feel like you're imposing. It's my job to make sure that you're succeeding in this class. Furthermore, if for some reason I'm intimidating to you, feel free to reach out not to just your TA, but to any of the TAs here to meet with them. You don't necessarily have to meet with your TA, right? It all kind of balances out if everybody goes and meets other TAs. Every single TA I've had has either been a student. Every single TA for this course is either a graduate student I've worked with before, or an undergraduate who has taken this course before. So, and done well, I should say. So otherwise, it's just fairly. They're very good people. Some of you maybe have questions about the textbook. It's free. I'll get into that in a bit, but I despise the textbook industry, so the textbook is free. It has some quirks, but I think you'll overlook it for not having to pay a penny. So, and the last part, I do record my lectures. You can find the lecture recordings here under lecture recordings,
right over here. It's kind of hidden, I feel sometimes, but I'm using a template. And so over here under the other important links, you can find that you can find the YouTube channel here or a direct link here. I put it on YouTube not because I monetize things. I don't monetize things for this on YouTube. In fact, I highly recommend installing an ad blocker so that you don't have to subject yourself to any ads while reviewing any of the lectures I record. Instead, I put it on YouTube because I know that YouTube will be up. And if it's not up and you can't watch my videos, it's not my problem. It's not my fault. It's something else in the world has gone horribly wrong. So that's the reason it's there. So let's go over what this is. This course is mildly flipped. Which means that you're expected to watch lectures / read material each week before coming to the lecture session. And most of our lectures is less me dedicated to doing work in class. Sorry, less me dedicated to lecturing and more me dedicated to doing exercises in class, helping you out with learning by doing exercises that will count for credit. Our labs will be held in person unless otherwise specified, and we do have lab in the first week. If you missed your lab, this lab is very important to get to. It's doable to do it on your own, but if you for some reason missed your lab because you registered late or you just didn't realize what was going on, look up one of the other lab sections over here and just head to that one so that you can actually I don't think we have. Do we have any? And just head to that other lab section so that you can, to another lab section to make sure that you get that material. This can be found on the syllabus uploaded to Canvas. So if you need my Zoom link, it's here as well. The Discord link is here, and the lecture recordings has a link here as well. This class does have a Discord. In fact, it shares the same Discord as all of my other courses. If you are unfamiliar with Discord, it is just simply a giant chat room with some added features, primarily catering to gamers, but as opposed to Slack, which caters to business. But it's the same kind of idea here, and it's just simply, I use it simply as a good way to kind of organize things and organize students. We have a lot of students from previous semesters who hang out and do answer questions that you might have. So it's a fairly good bunch there. All right, so executive summary. As I'll explain in detail, the homework you turn in for this course is a two-step process. The first step is to submit your homework and turn it in. Whether your work is late or not is based off of when you turn it in, but turning it in is not sufficient in itself to get a grade for your homework. I know that seems weird, but there's reasons for my madness over here. And then the second part to actually get your grade is demoing it. You show it to us during lab or during office hours. Us being the TA or me. Either your TA, another TA. So if you can't for some reason show them during lab, or you can't schedule during you can always make an appointment during office hours. That's how you get your grade, and you don't have to demo before it's due. You have time after it's been due to demo. This leads me to my next point. This is one of the few ways you have to automatically fail the course, which is if you utter some variation of the phrase, "I did not know we needed to demo our assignments to receive credit after the first exam," that is an instant zero in this course. I used to have people say that to me all the time. And ever since I put this in, nobody said it. It's amazing how that works, right? So, because you got to learn how to follow directions in programming. Did I not? Okay, this is an older syllabus. Guess I need it. Okay, I thought I obviously didn't push the syllabus onto my GitHub, so let me grab the newer one. Okay, this one should have all the correct information on it. Yeah, there we go. Those are the lab times. Okay. Right. So when you sign up for the textbook, you can find this on the front page of Canvas as well. You'll want to use the course name Spring 2025 Rosen. So I use the same format every semester. So it's fall or spring, and then the year, and then Rosen. And when you sign up, I have these directions here on the front of Canvas as well. When you sign up, you want to use your TU email and or your name from Canvas. Don't use your alias, because I have a script that goes through and grabs your work from there and combines it with your Canvas grade. And it relies off of being able to figure that out for with your TU email. Okay. Don't cheat, please. I actually have to update this because I still have to submit a charge from last semester. But I will catch you if you cheat, because pattern matching is a subdomain of computer science. And other things. Don't come to class if you're feeling sick, even if it's an exam day. We will figure out a way to make it up if there's an exam. But seriously, I can't properly assess you if you're sick. You could spread germs to other people if you're sick. So just, when in doubt, just stay home, catch up on the lecture. Otherwise, just do what you need to stay healthy. Finally, you can't demo all your assignments at the end of the semester. I had to say no to multiple people last semester. That's not... I'll explain more about that later. I just simply say no if you basically turn in all your homework at the end of the semester and try to demo it all at once. It's never been a fun experience. Okay. So this is an intro to programming course. This assumes no background computer science knowledge. It does assume you know how to use a computer, how to download files, how to open up stuff in a web browser, that you can navigate Canvas comfortably. The math knowledge that I assume is that I assume you know what a graph is, right? And that you know what and if I were to give you a coordinate like -2, -5, you'd know that's -2 in the x-axis and -5 in the y-axis, right? That's really all the math knowledge we need. I will touch on more complicated math topics, but really it's just because we work with this certain kind of graphics system that works on the Euclidean plane, which is your 2D graph that you use all the time. That's really it. Okay. This is a 4-hour course. So that means that you're expected, the rule of thumb is somewhere between 2 and 4 hours, or 2 and 3 hours per every credit hour. So expect to work about 8 to 12 hours a week on this course. Simply because the most analogous course I can give to this one is not a math class, but in fact music, because music requires practice, and this requires it too. It is the only way to really improve. It sucks because you're going to run into a bunch of errors. You're going to make tons of mistakes while you program. You're going to beat your head against the wall for multiple hours, and then realize that it was a very, very basic typo that you made very early on that's giving you all these issues. And that sucks. It's something we all do. Okay? We're all a bunch of big idiots here. So then that, and myself included. Okay? But the thing is that the more mistakes you make, the more your list of mistakes grows. And it's not so much a list of failures, it's a checklist of, okay, this isn't working. Did I try this, and this? And that's really the difference. You'll see that I'll be able to solve a lot of your issues very, very quickly. It's because I've made the same mistake, but I've made it more times than you. So I know how to fix it, because I've failed way more than you have. Okay? If I'm sick, I might need to hold this via Zoom. I'm very good at doing Zoom lectures, though, so that'll be fun. Okay? And then, yeah, so if you haven't taken a big class like this is especially for this, you've already been through here. Most of you have taken one semester already or more. So it's completely confusing for fall freshmen, but for spring freshmen or people who are in their sophomore year, this is not necessarily that confusing. That we share, there's a bunch of sections for this class. We all share one big lecture hall, but there's multiple different labs, but each of the different sections have a different time for their lab. Okay, so whatever, so long story short, while you may see all this different things here and that might confuse you, just look at your schedule and follow your schedule. That will put you in the right place, guaranteed. Okay. C or better in college algebra. You're expected to know how to use a computer, right? We mentioned that. A reliable laptop is strongly recommended. You can get away with a reliable desktop. You can also borrow laptops from one of the kiosk stations around campus, like in the library and stuff. You can check those out for like multiple hours at a time. But you need to have something you can reliably use and isn't going to be a painful experience for you. You will suffer, and I do mean that term, suffer, if you do not have a laptop or computer that you can use, that you cannot rely on. Like if it takes like 5 minutes to boot up, if it's got like 10 missing keys on it, if it's got like it's just that it just does not work. Because you need to keep running your code again and again and again, and trying to do it and then having to wait like a minute for it to run. That shouldn't happen, with any modern computer, but ugh. So if for some reason you don't have a computer, can't afford it, just speak to me. I'll help you figure something out. Okay. I have a lot of kind of resources or options that I know of, and to be honest, the way computers have gotten these days, you can buy a computer for around $450 that will carry you through your entire college career, assuming you aren't doing anything like trying to train AI models on it. Most of these computers are really powerful these days. Okay. So the most important resource for the class is the textbook. It is so it's the foundation of Python programming on Runestone Academy. What you do is you click on this link or go directly to runestone.academy. Okay. Click login, and then then hit sign up. Right? You'll put in your username, can be whatever you want. Use first name, last name. I would use whatever's on Canvas because that's just easiest for me. And then use whatever, my TU email is tug85861@temple.edu. So you would use whatever your TU email is there to sign up for it. That just makes it easy for my script to pick you up later. And then in the course name, we would do spring. Not sprung, spring. I swear I know how to spell. 2025 Rosen. And that's it. You're signed up for a textbook. Once you're in the textbook, just be sure to do that for next class because we're going to work out out of the textbook next class. Once you're inside the textbook, it will open up and look something like this with a bunch of due dates and stuff. Don't worry about that. Don't panic about that, please. I will explain that those due dates aren't as horrifying as they seem. But Foundations of Python Programming, there's your textbook. And it's all electronic. Also, though, so I expect you to read the textbook. In fact, you get credit for completing it. But if reading is not your thing, I actually went through the trouble to record lectures for most of these, not that one, but for starting in chapter 2 for the second week, where I went over and basically went over each section in the textbook. So you have not only a written example, but you have a video example. You don't have to read. You can watch the videos, you can read the book, you can do both. Okay? And then you can just kind of manually check off that you did the reading for it. Whatever works for you. Okay, I'm just trying to give you as many resources as you can to succeed. Okay? But again, this is a free textbook, and I find it's fantastic for this class. Okay. Now let's see. Where did my syllabus go? Did I have a... Yes, I should have a... Really? Did I close it? Yes, I did. Why did I close it? Okay. If you need additional references, additional textbooks, these are 2 other free textbooks that are available for free online and have a hard copy for $20 to $30. I really am conscious of any additional cost you have to make. Finally, Python itself does have tutorials. Office hours, if you're coming to my office hours, don't worry about interrupting me if I'm like eating or something or working on something else or just browsing, fun cat videos online. If you're there if you show up for office hours, you then become my top priority. Also, unless the door is closed, feel free to walk in even if there's another student there. And again, if you need to meet me late at night, please do. Just send me an email and we can meet over Zoom. Peer tutoring. Free peer tutoring for this class and other computer science classes available in CERC 358. Okay. I mentioned for attendance. So attendance, it's expected. I don't say it's required because I cannot keep you here. If you decide to get up and go, okay. But I don't like attendance. I don't really check off formally. I don't take attendance or stuff like that. It's expected for your lectures and labs. I will get back to that and for labs, because I'm trying to do something different for labs this semester. Lectures will cover more than what's present in the book, and there's a strong correlation between not just this class but every single class you take between showing up to a lecture and doing well on the exams. If you're sick, once again, don't come to class. Just let me know if you need to make something up. Also, mental health. If you're dealing with issues such as not having a place that you can reliably stay at to sleep, if you're having changes of mood, problems eating or sleeping, if you're just having a shit time, okay, then just let me know sooner rather than later that it's affecting your work, because I can make the earlier I know that issues are going on, the easier it is for me to accommodate. The easier it is for me to help you out. The easier it is for me to give you alternate due dates. If you tell me that you haven't been able to come to class because you've been working, and you tell me the last day of the class, or even worse, the day grades are due, there's not much I can do at that point. There's really not. So reach out to me as you're falling behind, as hard as that will be. I will understand. I will not judge you. Okay? Everybody can use a sympathetic ear. I can be that ear, and I can help direct you to resources that you need. Disabilities. If you have an accommodation via DRS, the way you go about that is you let DRS know so that to let me know, right, that you need accommodations. I have yet to find an unreasonable accommodation, so just again let me know what you need. Again, lecture recordings will be there. You're allowed to make your own recordings, but you're not allowed to post those online or share your own lecture recordings. That's my job, and also my permissions and stuff. Okay, grades. How do you get grades in this course? They're broken down into multiple categories. Solo exercises, classroom exercises, lab assignments, final projects, exams, final exam. Okay? So let me go and talk about these in groups. Solo exercises and classroom exercises. These are essentially stuff. The first is, this is you reading the textbook and doing the exercises from the textbook. These are not supposed to be hard exercises. Sometimes they are harder than I anticipate, in which case, if you're struggling on an exercise for more than 15 minutes, the answer is to stop working on it and go and ask for help from a student, from me, whatever. These are not meant to be hard exercises. If you are finding them hard, it's not necessarily your fault. It could be because a lot of these exercises I use something called unit tests, and you may have just simply come up with an extremely awesome solution that I did not account for. Okay? So, just so if things are going wrong, please let me know. You can let us know on Discord, and possibly other people will chime in that they're having issues on that one. But most importantly about these solo exercises, which are basically the things listed here in on Runestone, these due dates are soft due dates. This is when I expect you to have them done. As long as they're done by the end of the semester, you'll get credit for them. I don't care how late they are. You'll always get full credit for these. Okay. But these are when I expect to have them done by. Okay. And I might have to adjust some of them, but the point being is that those, when they get done, they get done. Classroom exercises are very similar. They're just like a lot of the exercises we'll do in class as part of the book. If you're not in class that day, watch the lecture recording and make it up. The one change we might have is that we might be doing some short, very low stakes quizzes, very, very low stakes quizzes, like you get some credit for writing your name level of low stakes quizzes in lab, just to make sure that students do show up to their labs. They might be worth like 10 points, and a normal kind of exercise might be worth like 50 or 20. So we're trying to, but it's something we're going to try to pilot out, these things. They'll be like no more than 10 minutes. If you have accommodations, there's something to talk with your TA about, and they shouldn't require you to go to a testing center or anything like that. It's that level of low stakes, okay? But again, it's something we're trying out this semester, and we'll see how well it goes. I'm a big fan of experimenting in my class to see what works and what doesn't work. Okay. Lab assignments. These are your typical homeworks. Okay. They are given in lab, and they are meant to do, and they are essentially, they are meant to be started in the lab and substantially worked on, if not finished in the period. The first couple of weeks, you might be able to finish in the lab, especially the first assignment, especially the first homework. You should be able to finish that in the lab. But as we get on later in the later semester, it becomes more difficult to finish the whole thing, and they start resembling closer to homeworks. They're supervised by me or the TA for the introduction. I would expect you should get help from your fellow students. In fact, I say that otherwise over here. And most importantly, for lab assignments, that's where you demo. So what that means is you turn it in by the due date, okay? You turn it in by the due date. You turn it in on Canvas to do that. That's so we have an electronic paper trail that you actually did the work. The second step is demoing it to the TA or me. What that means is that you show the code, you run it for us to show that it works, and we ask you questions about it. This helps make sure that you didn't necessarily plagiarize it or get the homework sent to you from a friend, which is plagiarism, but, or use ChatGPT or something to give you an answer, right? Just to make sure you understand it, okay? If you can't explain it, we essentially just tell you to go away until you can explain it. Or we'll give you or especially early on, we'll give you a very strong kind of, we know that you didn't do this kind of look. Just kind of, we please don't try to get it, try to con us on this. But mainly it's just to make sure that you understand what you're typing. There's a lot of things that that are in Python that can kind of note that you didn't necessarily do your work if you're just a starter, if you're just starting out. That being said, don't worry about false accusations. If you can explain it, we're going to assume that you did the work. Okay. Demoing can be done after class. I generally have some time after class, during the TAs or my professor or my office hours, or during your lab. During your lab is kind of the default time to demo these, right? You have up to two. So how do due dates work for these? Due dates are firm, right? So we had soft due dates. Now we have firm due dates. Late assignments will be accepted at a penalty of 5 points per day. They're typically 100 points. So not too much of a penalty, right? Turned it in 2 days, 2 extra days to work on it, that's still an A, right? Because generally you get 100 on them or it's just not done. Right? That's the issue with computer science homework. They either work or they don't. So the late grades are based off of when you turn it in, not when you demo it. So if you turn it in on, say it's due on Wednesday, most of them will be due on Wednesday. If it's due on Wednesday and then you demo it on Friday, that's been done on time. Or if you turn it on Wednesday and then you demo it a week later. That's still on time. You turn it in on Thursday, you demo it a week later. That's 1 day late, so it's 5 points off. Okay. You have so in the syllabus I have written here, you have up to 2 weeks after the due date to demo your lab. Otherwise, we will enter a 0, but this can be waived. And I have a big footnote there. So the reason I have this in here is specifically to counter essentially really bad actions on on the student's part, where basically I've had issues in the past semesters, like pre-COVID and during COVID, where students would try to demo everything all at once. They didn't do their work, and then they try to turn it in all at once, and then I'd be sympathetic and I'd give them the chance to demo it all at once. The vast majority of the time, I discovered that the student had cheated on something during that, or they were unprepared or didn't fully complete the assignments. So it went really bad. And I think the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, was during COVID when a student, typically if I do these over Zoom, I need you to share your screen. Well, the student couldn't share their computer screen using Zoom for some reason. So they decide what they need to do is boot up their phone, and he's going to point it at the computer for me to look at, which is already, you can tell how horrible that is. And that's also when I discovered that he's shirtless. So that was fantastic. So it was so yeah, that kind of soured me on that. But in general, this 2 weeks limit that can be waived. Right? This can be waived for if you've been showing up to class and you turn it in 3 weeks and you demo like 3 weeks later, whatever. I don't really care. The reason this is there is for students trying to demo everything at the end of the semester. It's for me to protect myself from a huge amount of aggravation, because it is about an hour's worth of aggravation when I'm doing those large demos. All right, final project. Yes, this is a freshman class and you have a final project in it. So interesting thing about this class is that we stopped doing homework about 2/3 of the way through the semester, and we transitioned to doing the final project. It's actually fantastic. I love doing this in this class. It's something I started during COVID, and it was amazing. So essentially, there's a lot. Computer science is big. Programming's big. And I want to give you the chance to do something here. This is essentially me throwing you into the deep end of the pool and you discovering you can swim. We will discuss this much later on in the semester, but this is allowing you to learn what you want to do, okay? Or try something out that you want to do. If you are interested in making video games or making mods for video games, this is your opportunity to learn Unity or Unreal or to make that Minecraft mod you were always thinking of. If you wanted to learn how to build a website, this is your chance. If you wanted to learn how to build a really interesting website using Flask or something like that, this is your chance. If you wanted to do some AI training stuff, this is your chance. If you want to make an Android app or an iPhone app, this is your chance to do that. This is your chance basically to do that thing you always meant to do and meant to set aside time for. Well, here is time for it, and you get to do it for credit. It's 10% of your grade, and this is one of those things where I will tell you, it is an A for effort on this one. Right? If you show me effort, even if the lowest score I gave for this one for like legitimate effort, they tried and didn't really get anywhere, was a 70 on this final project, right? But most parts, if you complete most of your goals and you tried, it's a 90 on this one. So what's the incentive for you doing more than the minimum amount of effort, right? There's got to be some incentive. Because otherwise, why? And when I say A for effort, it's a 90. So how do you get 100 or something like that? Well, the best final projects, they get to skip the final exam. I generally choose 1 or 2 from each section, best final project, and these can be, and when I say project, I mean whether or not they're in a group or not. You can decide whether you want to do this in a group or of up to 3 people, or you want to go solo. The best final projects get to skip the exam, the final exam. That's what it is. Okay. I will go into detail about more of the steps. There's only besides not doing it, there's only one way to kind of instantly fail the final project, which is that we have these 3 steps: to brainstorm, to give me a proposal, and to give me a progress report. If you've not given me a proposal by the time the progress report is due, which is like the week before the semester ends, then at that point I say, no, there's not enough time left. It's a 0. This is something you don't have to worry about until late March, by the way. Okay? Like literally put this out of your mind until late March. Okay? Auto 0 on the final project. And I've had students who've gotten B's even though they get a 0 on the final project. So it happens. The due date for this final project is hard. It is going to be due the very last day of class, like the very, very last day of the semester. Like the study day is the next day. It is not going to be altered. I do not give extensions for this. If you're not done with it, turn in what you have. The late penalty is 0.1 point per minute. That's a tenth of a point per minute, so that's 6 points every hour it's late. So in case, stuff does go wrong. And as far as, well, what if my computer crashes? Well, at that point, you're a programmer. You should be able to account for these things. In fact, you'll be using GitHub. So it's not going to matter. As long as you have access to a computer, you should be able to get back up and running within 2 hours. But don't worry about that. We'll burn that bridge when we get there. The other thing that's relevant is that if you are a senior, right, this final project is a chance for you to double dip. Generally, professors frown upon you saying, "Oh, I want to do the same project for 2 different classes," right? This is actually totally allowable if you get permission from both professors, which is the tricky part about it. Generally, though, if you're doing research, right, as part of your degree, this is something you can do. And I just need permission from the other instructor that you're going to do it. And most professors will jump at the chance and say yes. Okay. Exams. So exams will be held in labs. They are on paper. I know that sounds weird for computer course, but they're on paper just simply because it's just way too easy to use an AI plugin these days on these kind of things. They're on paper and they're administered in lab, so there will be about 2 hours allotted to them. They most likely occur during week 6 and then around week 11. This is week 1 currently. Okay. So the main thing you should know about the exam is that I do give you plenty of time. I do give you a cheat. I allow you to bring in a cheat sheet. I give you a practice exam. I do a review of the practice exam. I try to be as upfront about this as possible because for a lot of you, this is a completely foreign subject, right? I try to give you as much information as possible going in. So what I do for the practice exams, I make twice as many questions as I need, and I give you half of them. So it is actually a fair representation of what I want of what's on the exam. In fact, most of the time I give you the harder questions on the practice exams because that's a better workout, so to speak. So just be aware of those. Last semester, with the exams, we had enough people like absence, or we had enough issues that what we did last semester is that we did 3 exams, and then we did best 2 out of 3. Okay, for that. So if circumstances say that we need it or allow it, we might give a 3rd exam. But if we give a 3rd exam, then it's going to be basically best 2 out of 3 situation. So the 3rd exam would only help you, not hurt you. Right? Due date for the exam is hard unless if you are sick the day of the exam, please let me know. Okay. Also, I believe with it being during week 10 or 11, this generally, I think that would put it around Ramadan. So if you are fasting and you have a lab in the afternoon, that may not be the most optimal time for you to take the exam because it's hard to test properly and when you're fasting. So if you need an accommodation around that, like to take it earlier in the day or later in the day, we can work that out. Okay? Because it's rough, and I want an accurate assessment of what you know. Okay, so the final exam, I don't copy and paste the details here. You can find the final exam the same way I do, which is you go to the registrar and look, and they'll have a table that I'll show you later in the semester. All right. So in general, academic honesty, what is cheating in this class essentially? The general rule of thumb is that if you're the one asking for help, you can show other people your code. That's the general rule of thumb. If you are asking for help, if you need help, show other people your code. If you have an answer or you're helping somebody else, don't show them your code. Make sense? Right? It's I love it. No sarcasm. I love it when people go onto Discord and say, "Hey, my code isn't working. What's going wrong here?" And then they paste their code. This is perfect. This is what I want to see happen. Okay? However, if you give somebody your answers, that's not going to let them master the material. Okay? I have a full kind of walkthrough of what these are. Occasionally, you'll find stuff online that will answer your question or answer a part of a question for you, like how do I do a for loop that does this, or how do I do a for loop that does every other line, or something like that. Fine. Worst case scenario, if you're not sure, cite it, because then that's not dishonesty. Okay. The worst at that point I can do is tell you, I expect you to do this yourself. Go back and do it, please. You won't get in trouble for that if you cite it. And how do you cite something? You just simply drop me the URL where you found it. It's that easy. This course doesn't use MLA or anything like that. You just give me a URL. Okay. Okay. So, and in general, y'all are human. Y'all make mistakes sometimes. If you commit a act of plagiarism, you cheat on an exam or something like that. If you let me know within 72 hours, I will not escalate it. Right? If you confess to something that you did within 72 hours, I might mark that question as a 0, mark an assignment as a 0, but I'm not going to do an academic misconduct charge. Okay? So, as I mentioned, approximately 1 student a semester triggers this and reaches out and says, "Hey, I effed up." Okay? And they suffer only the most mild of consequences, like a 0 on the problem that they looked at, or something like that. Okay, so with that, your first lab will be going over how to install in Python and how to do some basic operations in Python. That will be covered mostly in your lab, but if for some reason you missed your lab, or you want to get started on it early, or you need to review the material, on Canvas, go to Modules. Start here, just has information that's very useful. Meet the Professor has information about me. The overviews kind of tell you what's going to go on during that module. We do about 1 module a week. And then you'll notice over here, we go over in module overview. It tells you what it's going to do, what you need to submit, what other things you could do to if you have the time and want to torture yourself. And then videos on how to install Python. And then if you're working with a Chromebook or an iPad or something else, right, there's some options there, and I go over those. They might be slightly out of date, but there's definitely an equivalent out there. I talk about idle, which is the tool that most of you will use to do programming in. Programming is done in what's called an editor. Sometimes you use something more powerful called an integrated development environment, called an IDE. Long story short, most of you are going to use idle because when you download and install Python on your computer, it's going to install idle right alongside with it. So you only have to download and install one thing. Your job's done. It's nice and minimalistic. It doesn't have a ton of scary menus. It has only one weird quirk that your TAs will help you work around, and that's it. It's nice and it gets out of the way and it's easy to use. However, some of you may have use other stuff. You're more than welcome to use whatever tool you want. If you like using VS Code, please by all means use VS Code. If you're using Emacs or Vim, then why are you taking this class? I don't know. I don't have to worry about you. You're allowed to use, if you want to use something more like PyCharm, you're more than welcome to. I don't care what tool you use, so long as it's a tool that you're most comfortable with. Okay? I will be using idle in my lectures simply because, not because I expect you to use it necessarily, but because most of you will be using it and I want it to be nice and familiar. Okay? One more thing that's kind of interesting here, right? If you're having the laptop situation, right? If you're having issues with a laptop or a workbook or something for the semester, until about week 7, it's not actually going to be a big deal. Week 7 is where you definitely need your own machine that you have access to and can reliably use. Even if that's just a matter of making sure you can reliably grab a laptop from a kiosk. Why is that? Because your textbook is awesome. That's why. Because your textbook, right, does things like using, like has runnable code in it. Okay, it has runnable code that can be altered. Again, once again, I did learn how to spell at some point. I may have forgotten, but so hello, right? So you can alter these codes and this code, and you can go through and it keeps snapshots of your various changes, which is extremely useful. But more importantly, you don't have to just go to open up the book to a random section and just start typing in and making a whole mess. There's this pen icon over here, and that's your scratch pad. And here you can do whatever you want. Like over here, print hello, and look, it prints out hello. So for instance, if you don't have access to a computer that's yours for a day and you need to use somebody else's laptop, you can just open up their web browser and do this, no problem. Even stuff for lab 3 and 4 where we do turtles, which is graphical stuff, that's supported by the web browser, which is awesome. And also, like here's a for loop, which you'll learn later. But there's also this button over here called Show and Code Lens, which goes through the code step by step, which is extremely useful when you're just starting out. So this has amazing tools in it. It's very good. Okay. So using your textbook here is always an option. Okay. But again, we're not really going to get, again, the focus of your lab is getting Python installed. If for some reason you missed your lab, you can't attend a different one, generally you shouldn't be, you need to attend the lab as your own. But the first lab is that important that if you haven't made it to yours, you should show up to somebody, you should just crash somebody else's. And hopefully the fire marshal won't get upset about that. So let's see. And then again, we'll be signed up for RuneSim for tomorrow. So with the rest of the lecture, the rest of the half an hour, I need to clear up some fun misconceptions about computer science and explain what it is for you, and as well as go on a bit of history. So computer science is actually a pretty terrible name for this subject because it implies we study computers, which we don't. It's like if you, as this quote says over here, biology is not microscope science, chemistry is not beaker science, and astronomy is not telescope science, right? Those are the tools that are associated with it, but it's not necessarily what we do. You might hear the term informatics used sometimes for computer science, and that's probably a more accurate term. It's not that I used to think computer science was programming until I actually started taking courses in it, and it's not, but it's a very understandable mistake because programming is like the first part that we do in it and kind of our first exposure to computer science. And it isn't necessarily about even learning a bunch of programming languages or the specific software that we use. In fact, if you ask a bunch of computer scientists like myself and your other professors to give you a definition of computer science, they'll actually probably struggle a bit and give you vastly different answers. So I like a not wrong definition, one that people will nod at and say, yeah, that sounds about right. So the textbook authors Gibbs and Tucker, that they had a Java textbook I really liked, and they simply said that computer science is the study of algorithms. That's what it comes down to. Computer science is the study of algorithm, which of course begs another question: what in the world's an algorithm? Specifically, computer science is the study of how we automate problem solving. It is the study of problem solving and the automation of problem solving processes. It asks, the question it tries to answer is, what, when we get right down to it, can be automated, and what can get automated efficiently? Okay. It's got a lot of different branches. Theoretical computer science, which is probably for a lot of you, the least interesting computer science branch, because that's the highly mathematical branch, is huge in itself. Okay? Theoretical computer science covers a wide variety of topics, including algorithms, data structures, computational complexity, parallel and distributed computation, probabilistic computation, quantum computation, automata theory, information theory, cryptography, program semantics and verification, machine learning, computational biology, computational economics, computational geometry, and computational number theory and algebra. Work in this field is often distinguished by its emphasis on mathematical techniques and rigor. This is just one small part of computer science, and it is a big thing. I often say that computer science is a bit like the Balkans. It's just or Yugoslavia. It's like one big thing just waiting to be broken up into a bunch of much smaller fields, because there's a lot of cross-section. A lot of the people who are in IST, computer science and data science, if you plot out the Venn diagram of all the jobs that everybody can do, it's like almost circular. There's a lot of overlap between us. What does it say that computer science is the study of algorithms? We study algorithms to study if they are correct, their formal and mathematical properties. We design and build computer systems that are able to execute algorithms. We design languages to translate algorithms into programming, and we identify problems so that that can be solved by these programs. Okay. So let's see. So yes. So what can computer science? What can you do with computer science? So computer science degree, IST, cybersecurity, data science, effectively they show different things, two things. You know how to program and you know how to design solutions to problems, the latter I think being the more important one. It's not just about software development. Computer science these days is a huge interdisciplinary kind aspects to it. The biggest one and the one that will always remain big despite AI being the very exciting thing right now, the one that will always, forever remain big is the cross-section between computer science and biology, chemistry, and medicine. Or simply put, bioinformatics. Why? Because humans will always get sick and always need to be healed. We will always need to figure out different ways to help repair humans, possibly create new awesome parts like prosthetics, There's always a need for medicine. Bioinformatics is always big. Bioinformatics is useful for the development of, let's say, algorithms for cancer detection and the design of new medicine. Checking to make sure that you're simulating, does that drug inhibit HIV? And as I mentioned, prosthetics. Making more advanced prosthetics that maybe but not to be too crude about it, a robo-arm, stuff like that. Physics and astronomy is a bit less of a big field, but it's no less exciting. Quantum computing is just something you'll see in the news every so often. But one of the interesting things, like supernova detection, most supernovae are detected by computer algorithms these days rather than by the naked eye. There's tons of astronomy data that is just simply gathered every day from telescopes, and that needs to be sifted through. Engineering, that cross-section is fairly obvious. There's a lot of engineering that requires programming. Business and economics. There's a lot of problem solving involves dealing with big problems, which involves managing people and managing tasks. That kind of just helps with that. There are a lot of computer science techniques do help with that. Also, if you're interested in money, then the high-speed trading algorithms is where the money is. And banks and investment firms pay a lot of money for a lot of people to do quantitative analysis and figure out how to identify opportunities in the market. Psychology, the cross section for computer science and psychology is something called human-computer interaction. It's a very interesting field because it examines how do we use computers, how do we interact with computers, what makes good design, what makes bad design, and what is just dark design, evil design. Now I'm like in the same, human-computer interaction is all about making life better by using a computer. It's also about making life worse, such as how can I use a computer's interface to extract as much money from a person as possible. Go and actually look at a low-budget airline's website and just kind of see the design of the page and the psychological design and just look at it analytically, and you'll see, oh, so this is how it works. One thing I used to work on as an undergraduate was user interfaces and teaching tools for blind users. In other words, how do people use computers when they're blind, or teaching tools for students who are blind that are using computers. Also, education, edutainment used to be a really big thing. Educational resource, basically being able to teach through gamification. That's a pretty big thing. If you're using Duolingo, you are very familiar now with gamification of things. Making sure people get points, because we treat arbitrary imaginary points and possessions as though they're real things. More direct applications of CS are software engineering, network, data analysis, security. Security is also always big. Just checking my time, plenty of time. So we're going to talk now, I mentioned that computer science is the study of algorithms. So what the heck is an algorithm? So the word algorithm comes from a Latinized name of a Persian mathematician. Now, I'll probably completely butcher the name. The name is Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi, I believe it is, or is al-Khwarizmi. It's Latinized to algorithm, which, that doesn't really preserve nearly as much as you thought it would. Anyway, so he was a very important mathematician, not just because of computer science. There's a reason we named algorithm after him. He wrote a textbook called The Concise Book of Calculation by Reduction in 820. And we get the word algebra from the title of that textbook, Algebair. What that book he also wrote a book alongside it that contained formal instructions on how to do mathematical options in a relatively new numerical system that came out of India. Pretty interesting stuff. It was pretty successful. You may be familiar with it because that's the numerical system we use today. So he wrote a book on how to do these operations with that. That book was translated into Latin in the 1100s, and that's how it spread throughout Europe. So that's where the word algorithm comes from. It comes from this mathematician. So let's see. So if we look up algorithm, right, it should pull him up on Wikipedia fairly. Let's see. Well, no, pulled up algorithm. Definition. Etymology. Here you go. See, I'm not making this up. Persian polymath, meaning he was good at a ton of stuff. So he's a very interesting figure in history. Did a lot of mathematics. Yeah, described as the founder or father of algebra. Okay. So now what is this thing that he's named after? That's named after him? An algorithm. An algorithm is a set of well-ordered and unambiguous operations which yield some result for a finite amount of time. For those of you who do cooking, if you cook, a recipe isn't necessarily an algorithm. But if you're baking is an algorithm, if you understand what I mean. Baking is God help you if you get it 1 degree wrong, kind of level stuff. But so an algorithm is well-ordered, unambiguous operations that yield a result in a finite amount of time. That is the formal definition, so let's break that down. Well-ordered. What does that mean? That means that there's a clear step from beginning to end, right? To go back to our our example of baking, you make sure you turn on the oven and set it to a temperature first, right? Before, and you make sure you mix certain ingredients before you mix other ingredients. Okay? Well ordered. Things happen in a certain order and it's clearly defined. Unambiguous. No ambiguity. There's no room for misinterpretation. Computers don't interpret things, so you have to tell them exactly what you're doing. Operations. Things. Unambiguous operations. In other words, things that can't be confused. That yields some result. It gives us an answer in a finite amount of time, meaning before the universe ends. Okay? In other words, it doesn't go on forever. Okay? Studying algorithms began in mathematics. If you've ever done, I'm sure you've done addition of this format. Oh, come on. Really? You're stuck? What's the point of it? I'm sure you've done something along this format of like 423 plus 877. Right? If you've ever done this is an algorithm. It's a set of unambiguous operations that are well ordered. The instructions for the algorithm is that you start from the ones place over here. You don't start from the hundreds place because that might mess things up. Then you add the ones together. You create their sum, and if there's a carry, you put it in the next column. Then you add the carry plus everything else in that column. Right? 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus 7 is 10. And then you add another, and then you just keep doing the same thing over and over again. Right? This is an algorithm. You may not think of it as an algorithm, but it is an algorithm. Okay? Addition and multiplication by hand. Long division. Euclid's algorithm for finding a common divisor, a greatest common divisor. Oftentimes in some books, you'll see things that look like this. This is called pseudocode, where it's written in a programming-like language, but is not necessarily programming itself, or not a programming language itself. It's just kind of a very abstract way to put it. Anyway, algorithms are the things we turn into programs. And those allow, and an algorithm is what we allow, yes? I don't have it on the computer, but I will upload the video recording of this. Mm-hmm. So we might take this algorithm that we have written down in pseudocode and then turn it into a program like this. See, a lot of people came up with fundamental insights in computer science, but I'm going to skip that for right now to go in favor of history, because history is very much more exciting at this point in our lecture, and I will get back to this if I have time. So here's a very brief history of computer science. First kind of computational device would be we would consider as the abacus. If you're unfamiliar with it, it's essentially a hand kind of counting thing. It's a calculating device with beads. Okay, various cultures have created their own abacuses or different ways of doing some kind of counting. But the point being is that it was a tool for kind of allowing humans to extend their own kind of mental capabilities, ways of kind of a tool for writing stuff down, essentially. And really, computer science in itself wasn't really start to come into its own thing until the idea of gear machines between 1600 and 1800. It's a very long period because these things never really got made successfully or became a big thing. But a lot of different people, Pascal, Leibniz, Babbage, you might be familiar with these names from various mathematics or physics classes. They all came up with the idea, or some variation of the idea, that we want to use the position of gears to represent numbers. And other people, I'm sure, have come up with these ideas throughout history. They just may not have, been translated or been as famous about it. But each of them all came up with some slight variation of the idea. Babbage is bolded because specifically his specific idea was he wanted to create a gear-based machine that could do mathematical operations. The places of each digit might be represented by the position of gears. And then because going through and reading the gears would be a pain in the butt, the output could get printed on paper automatically. Okay, so the first programmer, the general consensus is that the first programmer, whoever lived, was Ada Lovelace. Here's the portrait of Ada Lovelace, or that is as she's commonly called, Ada Lovelace, or more specifically, her name is Augusta Ada King, the Countess of Lovelace. And just kind of throwing this out there. Anybody know who her dad is? Completely different subject area. Yes. Lord Byron. Lord Byron. So if you did your World Lit and the Byronic Hero, that Byron. What was it? It was Mad and Something to Know. I think that his description of him was mad and bad to know, essentially, at the time. He was very, let's just say he was quite the figure in that society, and his divorce with his wife was so acrimonious that people were fighting about it multiple years after both parties were dead. He was quite the figure in that period of history. Anyway, as a result, Ada's mother shuffled her away from kind of the arts and pushed her more to the sciences. So she started learning a lot about mathematics. And it turned out she was rather good at it. So how is she, what makes her the first programmer? So Babbage, he postulated this analytical engine that would do these automatic computations of numbers, automatic calculations. The idea here is that he designed this machine, never was able to build it, that would take instructions from a paper card with holes punched in them, which eventually was an idea that was used in the 50s and 60s, right? And so they would publish. The programs would be basically these hole punch cards. And what Ada did is that she translated a paper, and then she added her own notes to the paper on this analytical engine, which kind of detailed how a program written in this analytical engine could be used to compute things called Bernoulli numbers, which are important to statistics. So she, in this essence, wrote the first program for this computer that never got the opportunity to be built. She also wrote about how a machine such like this might be used to do things other than work on numbers, which is the kind of the big idea, her big contribution. It was that the idea here that you could do things other than mathematical calculations on these machines. Unfortunately, if we look at Ada Lovelace, we will see that she died at a tragically early age, 1815 to 1852. So that would make her 36. See, she was the first to recognize the machine had applications beyond pure calculation. She died, I believe, of, was it pancreatic cancer? Let's see, what was it? Did not. But she supplemented it with an elaborate set of 7 notes, simply called notes. 7th one, what many consider to be the first computer program. That is an algorithm designed to be carried out by a machine. So, again, she is probably the first, kind of looked at as like the first programmer. The first computer is a bit actually kind of odd, but that happened around World War II. World War II was the boom, basically, in computer science that started it as its own field. as it featured the birth of modern cryptography, the idea of using machines to break German ciphers. That was essentially a project classification known as Ultra. If you had Ultra security clearance, you were essentially very important. And if you had Ultra Magic, which was Japanese, Magic was Japanese, Ultra was German, then you were very important. But the idea here was creating machines to help break the German ciphers. Eisenhower said that Ultra was decisive to an Allied victory, because if you can break your enemy's communications, you will know where they are. You'll know where their troop transports are going to be, so you can sink them. You'll know where their patrols are, so you can avoid them. So this kind of intelligence is critical in warfare. The first computer is actually rather contentious. There is no clear first computer. A famous first computer is the ENIAC, the Electronic Numerical Integrator and Computer. It is massive. Utterly massive. This utterly massive computer with wires and stuff like that. It was used for artillery calculations. One figure I did not write down, though, in this, but really should be, is someone who worked very early on these computers, Grace Hopper, American Computer Science, and as of currently the highest ranked woman in the U.S. military ever. She worked on a number of computers, but she specifically used theory to develop different programming languages. She also is credited to finding what's considered to be the first computer bug. That's not a pun. That's actually what it was. The first computer bug was literally a bug in the computer. It is not a joke. That is where the term computer bug comes from. Because there was a moth in a relay and it impeded the operation in the Mark II computer at Harvard. So that's where we get bugging and debugging. That's what it is. It is a. She's a fantastic person to look into. So let's see, where was I? Other person worthwhile knowing, though, during World War II was Alan Turing. He's often considered to be the father of computer science. He along with, why is the name escaping me? Church. Alonzo Church basically came up with kind of the formal mathematical model of what a computer is, which meant you could mathematically prove what computers could and could not do. That is the theory of computation, essentially. So Turing, that is pretty much why Turing is considered the father of computation. The mathematical model for computers called a Turing machine, which has not much to do with a Turing test, which is an AI test. And he was one of the big leaders in the cryptography project of breaking German ciphers during World War II. Sadly, he also died at an early age for the crime of being born a homosexual in a time where society said that being homosexual was unacceptable. He was given the choice between being imprisonment or chemical castration. He chose the latter and then eventually committed suicide. The UK government formally apologized for his death a number of years ago, but it is still kind of a tragedy that a life was taken that early on. Since his time, kind of the computers, as you can see, used to be these massive things that would be stored in building, and the idea behind computation has been miniaturization since then. Things have gotten smaller and smaller. By 1980s, it was possible to have your own personal computer at home, right? Now, these days you carry around a computer in your pocket and you don't even think about it. That's more powerful than anything I had during high school. It's astounding the amount of power that we simply take for granted. The other big kind of idea is networking. The internet, which we all know and love, is a global system of networked computers. Network theory is a huge part of computer science. The application proposed in that Tim Berners-Lee proposed in was called the World Wide Web, and that is the application you use for getting websites. That's the www you put in front of websites. Pages linked to another, and the internet quickly became so massive you needed search engines to go through it. So with regards to that, you probably are asking, okay, this is not a bunch of programming stuff, so what should I remember for the exam, the first exam? Let me tell you, one of the questions I always ask on the first exam is, what is computer science? That's a hint. Maybe you should write that down. That's a question on the exam, on the first exam. What is computer science? It's worth 4 points on the exam. So, just having that written down might be helpful. The next thing is also, the first assignment goes over basically finding a famous computer scientist, a famous programmer, and printing out 3 facts about them. That's your first assignment. That's the first homework we do. It is just simply to make sure that that Python is working and that you are successfully running a program. So it's a fairly straightforward program. The restriction is that you don't choose somebody who's named Turing, Gates, or Jobs, because otherwise that's all I'd be seeing. And there's a lot more than those names. Okay? So that is the first assignment. Now, what we'll be doing on Thursday is we will be going over, we'll be running Python scripts out of our textbook and doing some fun image manipulation. And it's just kind of getting a feel for the way the language looks and the way running a program feels and the kind of the workflow of that. So I'll see you all here on Tuesday. One last bit of advice that I did not mention, but is worthwhile for you to know. Every single chair in this room has an electrical outlet. Every single one of them. So if you look down and you see that black bar beneath your chair, that big black bar beneath your chair, there are electrical outlets hidden all in there. They are just kind of the same color. So, but basically, there's always a place to charge your computer available. It's just, there's no specific seat you need. It's always there. If you need to speak to me about something, please come by, and I'll be happy to stick around.